Good morning. You've already heard from three really important regional thought leaders this morning in Amber and Chris and Al. You look at that window, that's the marine ecosystem that they are trying to preserve and protect. And every one of you this morning in our conservation block are being asked to be acolytes. So let's continue the discussion with two ideas we're spreading. Eat an oyster, help an oyster. And number two, what can we learn from the oyster in our own life? This is nature's perfect example of our theme this morning, resilience. Oysters from Maine to Florida are all of the same kind. It's the eastern oyster. It's also known as the Crassostrea virginica, if you're scientifically inclined. And there are two kinds. There is the wild oyster that you see as you drive over the beautiful bridges that are out there in the reefs. And as Al and Chris have been talking about this morning, there is the farmed or grown oyster. Oysters are wonderful things. They're full of vitamins. They're high in protein. They have zinc, which is great for your immune system. They're low in calories. But they have some problems, too. One of them is, if you're so inclined, they're high in sodium. So be careful. That's something you should be aware of. The other thing is that for the wild oysters, which are exposed twice a day at low tide in the hot months, there's a nasty little bacteria called the Vibrio that can infiltrate the oyster and the meat and make you very sick. So that is why we've heard this tale through the years of don't eat oysters in the non-R months. We get into September, October, November. Now you're starting to get into the cooler months. The oysters are safe. We have DHEC and DNR to tell us that they're good to eat. But then came the game change. And the game change is somebody figured out, specifically a scientist in Virginia, how to take the wild oyster, which is known as a diploid, and create something called a triploid. The triploid is asexual. It sits in that beautiful stew of phytonutrients all day long because it grows in a basket, and it's suspended in the water, and it's covered the entire time. So all of that wonderful stew of phytonutrients and plankton and so forth is coming in through its little filters, and it's pumping up to 4 gallons an hour. One oyster. That's why they're called the canary in the coal mine, because if they're not happy, if they're sick, then that's sick. The problem we have, folks, we don't know what we don't know. When you look at it, that water, it's beautiful. It looks pristine, but lurking in that water are a lot of problems. The last statewide survey that was done of our fresh and salt water was 40 years ago. The last survey that was done regionally came out in about 2000, and it was only Broad Creek and the Ocontee River, and it wasn't good. And that was 2000. So here we are in 2017, and basically we still don't know what we don't know. We know that there are some unintended consequences that are taking place. I'll talk to you about some of them. We know there are microplastics in the water. We know that there are personal pharmaceutical products in the water. Just think, because of estrogen-based personal pharmaceutical products, our fin stock is becoming more feminized. If that continues and you have a ratio of 65 or 75% women to 25% men, well, it's happy hour for the men, but they can't keep up. Not only that, but if that trend does continue, you could be paying $40 a pound for grouper. Not a happy prospect. So I've always wondered, I mean, really, when you think about it, who was the amazing humanoid who decided to eat an oyster? Who looked at this lumpy thing and figured, darn, if I open that thing up, there's going to be something really delicious in there. It kind of looks yucky, but I'll bet it's full of proteins and zinc and all that stuff I need as a Paleolithic Indian. Look right here, and what you see are front teeth in a skull that's thousands of years old that have been worn down for one reason. The Neo-Paleolithic Indians in this area 4,000 years ago knew that oysters were good, and they ate so damn many of them, they actually wore down their front teeth. There's your proof. So, we've got wild versus farmed. We've got no more R months because they're being grown in the water, and they're not susceptible to the Vibrio. And our legislature last year declared that those that are single grown, single select, farm raised, can be eaten 12 months a year. But now we're into oyster roast season. And most of the oyster roast oysters that you're eating are wild harvest raised. And the wild harvest raised oysters are the ones we have to worry about now, because whatever is lurking out there in the water is affecting them more specifically, and it requires some stewardship, some serious stewardship. So we've started a project, if you will, where FUN, which is a tourism-based initiative, helps to fund an organization which is going to start to get a handle on what's going on in our waters, what we don't know about what we don't know. What if the drinking water you're drinking wasn't fit to drink? Now, we may do the research and find out it's okay. I mean, it's not great, but it's not Flint, Michigan. But we may find out that there are 130 or 140 or 150 long-chain compounds in the water because the water treatment facilities aren't set up to filter personal pharmaceutical products. Every time you eat an artificial sweetener, it's designed not to stay in your body. You excrete it. It goes to the water treatment facility. It goes through the water treatment facility into our nearshore and inshore waters. We don't really know at this point what the impact of artificial sweeteners are on the mighty mollusk and the finstock. So, let's get to what kind of lessons can we learn from our friend the oyster. Well, first of all, you need to become filter feeders too. There's lots of things that you can do. This is you. This is the big chunky stuff. These are the things that fill up your regular day. This is faith and family and friends. This is seeking shelter. This is job security or a career. It could be saving enough for retirement, travel and leisure, the big stuff. Does it look pretty full? It looks pretty full. This is the sand that gets in the gears. Okay? This is relationships, Mars versus Venus. This is wants versus needs. This is your health, your family's health. The children become the parents. I didn't intend for 20 years of my life to have to care for and take care of 5 elders. I had to learn as the child how to become the parent. It's tough. So it starts to slow down the gears of life. And it gets harder and harder to filter, like the mighty oyster pumping 4 gallons an hour. You feel it. You feel an inertia. You feel a lethargy. You feel a black cloud, whatever it might be. You think that's pretty full now? Would you agree? Now you're drowning. This is more month than money. This is a health crisis. This is the big unexpected expense. Your son comes home. You did what? That's my Beamer. That's going to be $15,000 to get that thing fixed, son. You're grounded. This is the fear of missing out. You got to disconnect. You got to turn off the personal digital device. I had a friend, old college friend, call me the other day, and he said, you know, man, I miss seeing you. We used to have such a great time talking. We'd write letters back and forth. Let's get together. I'll text you. It's an oversized load, gang. We're up to the brim here. Like the oyster, you got to filter. You got to start to say no. Perception is reality. This guy, his mother says, don't eat with your mouth full. George Burns would say, I never buy bananas if they're green. Your boss might say, that's a hell of a guy. He's a multitasker. Give him a corner office. It's all about the perception. When you get to that point in life where you're trying to figure out how to stop drowning and how to be more effective at filtering, think of the oyster. The oyster sits there in that stew all day long, and he's successful unless there's something wrong with the water he's filtering. Or he has to worry about the main predator. We've heard this a few times before. Us. So that asexual triploid oyster puts all his time and energy not into reproducing, but into growing fat and big sooner than later. And just when he's feeling really full of himself, boom, along comes the harvesting axe, and he ends up in that oyster roast. So all I'm saying to you is, we can learn from our friends, the oysters, but we have to take care of them. We can learn to say no. We can learn to disconnect. We can learn to just pay attention to the big chunky stuff. We can try not to let the sand get in our gears too much. Albert Einstein, very, very interesting man. We all know him for what he was, but he really wanted to be a musician in life. He said, when I dream in music. He said, strive not to be a success. Strive to be of value. So my admonition to you as we end this evening, or this afternoon, or this morning, I don't even know where I am. I adopt something every year on the New Year's. And my personal motto this year is be interested and be interesting. Not the Chinese admonition of may you live in interesting times, but be interested and be interesting. Stay interested in that ecosystem. Stay interested in our friends, the oysters. Figure out how you can be of help. You've got my particulars. You know where to find me. I'm building a trail to help them be around in the next 100 years. Thank you all very much. Oh, somebody wanted, that's all right. Somebody wanted to know about the beers. What's the deal with the beers? Don't forget to share a beer with a friend.